if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve Postgame Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Sorry. Let me stop myself. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all of those of you joining us, wherever you're joining us, somewhere on the interweb, good morning and welcome to Illegal Curve After Dark, the Illegal Curve Postgame Show After Dark, I should say. I'm Dave Manouk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. We're here to discuss the Jets' 20th loss of the season, Ezzy, in game 75. They lose to the Los Angeles Kings 4-1. The story of tonight's game, to my mind, were miscues. A lot of miscues. Of course, the obvious one that folks are going to be steaming mad at dirt will be the Logan Stanley one. But of course, the Gus Bus, he made a bad one as well that resulted in a goal against. So to me, that was probably the story of the game. The top couple of lines not performing particularly well, depending on how you define the top couple of lines. But the fourth line I thought was good. The Lowry line was good. The Scheifele line not so much. And the Jets end up with starting off the road trip with their first loss. It's a 3-game road trip, of course, and they'll head to Vegas next. But we're here to talk about tonight's loss to those Los Angeles Kings. And there's a reason, as they only have 4 regulation losses at home, isn't it?
Absolutely. They are very good at crypto.com arena. By the way, I'm still surprised that crypto.com has the naming rights to that arena. Like, does anybody use crypto.com? Like, does anybody have cryptocurrency anymore? I have no idea. I actually think it's pretty valuable, Dave. So maybe I'll try to get some of it. But
we've been paying you in crypto for years, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't know how to use it. But the Kings are a good team, right? And by my count, Dave, the Jets have now lost 5 games to California-based teams because they lost twice to the Ducks this year, and they've lost 3 times to the Kings this year. So the Jets do not like California-based teams, and the San Jose Sharks always play the Jets tight, right? They almost beat the Jets the last time the two teams played, right? So this Kings team has now won 11 of their last 14 games. So this is a good team, and the Oilers won tonight. And right now, the Kings and the Oilers are battling it out for second in the Pacific, right, Dave? Because Vegas,
although Vegas lost tonight to the
Vegas is still up by 5 on both the Oilers and the Kings. So there is always the chance that the Oilers and the Kings finish first, but the Golden Knights are definitely in the driver's seat right now. So this game was, just as important to the Kings as it was to the Jets. The Jets are obviously, trying to stay ahead of the Dallas Stars in the Central Division, which is the same thing as the Western Conference because they're the 2 best teams in the West, right? And they're obviously trying to still stay ahead of the Washington Capitals. So, I mean, it was a hard-fought game, and, I don't agree with you, actually, Dave. Usually we agree. I actually like the Scheifele line tonight. I mean, Scheifele, there was definitely no shortage of shot attempts for Scheifele. I think he had 6 or 7 shot attempts.
Sure.
But he's struggling to put the puck in the net. And, we're obviously going to get into the goal-by-goal recap in the Play Now game recap, but the power play, it has been momentum zapping. No shots on the first power play, and I think they only had 1 shot on the second power play, and it just doesn't look the way it should look. It just doesn't seem to be clicking, certainly the way it was clicking before, and we talked about it on Saturday's show, right, Dave? Like, Gabe Vilardi is going to be out for a while. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out for. It's going to be at least a couple of weeks based on the week-to-week diagnosis, right? So, they don't have the secret weapon on the power play, and they have to figure it out. Guys like Scheifele and Connor and Ehlers, they have to start producing on the power play. And it was obviously an issue against Vancouver. They weren't able to get any power play goals. And tonight, I just didn't think they gained any momentum off of it. But overall, if you look at this game on NHL.com and you hadn't watched it, you'd say, the Kings handled the Jets pretty well. I thought this was a very even game. And like you talked about, it was really the costly turnovers that were the story of this game. And that seems to be, the story for the Jets when they lose, right? When they manage the puck well,
Yeah.
And they don't turn the puck over very much. They are usually successful, but this Kings team, I mean, they're opportunistic and they do not give you a lot, right? Like the Kings will give you center ice, but then once you get into their zone, it's like the offensive plays seem to die, right, Dave? They're a very stingy defensive team. Darcy Kemper, his numbers look very similar to Connor Hellebuck's, especially at home, right?
Yeah.
He's been a really nice addition, of course, in the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, right? So, I mean, it's, it wasn't the Jets' night tonight, but I mean, the costly turnovers and to me, the lack of any type of progression on the power play is concerning right now for this team.
Well, and I definitely have to agree with you on the power play. We don't always have to disagree or agree, Ezzy, but I'll agree with you here on the power play. I thought the power play continued, and JB pointed out that they're starting to stand around, something we've been talking about now for a while. And I thought nothing illustrated that point more than they had some good pressure, some good penetration, and then Alex Iafallo tried like almost a hope pass through 3 or 4 guys that got intercepted and killed any momentum that they started to build a little bit on the PK. And look, the LA Kings have, I think, the 8th best PK in the NHL, so they're not any slouches. And but to me, the Jets, their power play has not been crisp. We've been detailing this now for a while, and it's an area of concern. I agree with one of the things Kevin Sawyer said on the broadcast. The PK has continued to be good and continues to, and we know that I jokingly called it a power kill because, of course, they scored right after Morgan Barron made the block and then got the puck up to Cole Perfetti, spoiler alert. But the fact of the matter is that the PK is improving, but the PP is also. And so we kind of mentioned, I think Drew crunched the numbers as on the last show, and it was, they both are 14th in the last month or something like that. So again, I thought the PK had been a little bit better, but still at the end of the day, special teams, you don't have to be top 5, but you'd like them to be in the top 10, ideally. So that's an area of concern. And again, the turnovers, those will be probably what we talk about, I think, for the most part, because, well, we're going to highlight them when we do the game recap. We should probably mention also that, there was some lineup uncertainty heading into tonight's game. We knew that Chris Drieger had come on the road trip. I didn't know that Eric Comrie was coming on the road trip. So apparently he remains on baby watch, but so they've got Chris Drieger up with him and Connor Hellebuck. So you've got a 3-headed monster with the goaltending but we'll see if Eric Comrie stays with the team or ends up coming back home. But ultimately, Connor Hellebuck starts the game. Luke Schenn, as was reported by Mitchell Clinton this morning, is that he was dealing with some stiffness. So he left morning skate. He was supposed to play, left morning skate early. He didn't play. So Hayden Fleury gets the call into the lineup and paired with Logan Stanley. And then Colin Miller gets elevated into that second pairing role. And the other thing we should mention, speaking of the second pairing, is Neil Pionk back on the ice with his teammates. He skated for the very first time after, of course, as you mentioned, he was labeled as week to week. So he skates for the first time with the Jets, which is, again, a good sign, at least, that he's starting to get back and on the ice. And that's a good sign for the Jets. And, especially when you have Schenn, who's dealing with something. We'll find out maybe more from Scott O'Neill after the game, or the Jets are off tomorrow. So maybe we'll find out a little bit more, but ultimately you've got some lineup changes. So did you like the way it was configured before we kind of get the game recap going?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're not going to change something that's been successful, right? The Jets have won their last 3 games heading into tonight's game. And I mean, the numbers for the Ehlers, Lowry, Appleton line, I just had them up, but the advanced stats, that was the best line again for the Jets.
Yeah.
And shout out to 7JP, whose comment for the people listening on the podcast, Perfetti looking like a vet every game. LA scariest playoff Jet opponents, smash the like button. He's tired and he's going to sleep. And he says, hardworking IC boys, with a nice little emoticon there. And he that was a little super chat. So we'll give 7JP. He's a loyal, not a lawyer. I don't think he is, but he's a lawyer. But okay. He's a loyal IC viewer. So give him the shout out there. But I think another thing, Dave, to do with this game is, I mean, we talked about the penalty kill comes through for the Jets. They only had to kill off the one penalty, but they had good starts in the second and third periods when they were down, right?
Yep.
And the first 5 or 6 minutes, I made a note even. I really liked some of the shifts, even though it didn't result in goals. I like there was a shift from the fourth line. Obviously, Morgan Barron, Dave, had that really good scoring chance in the third period. Cole Perfetti had a really good scoring chance. He obviously scored, obviously, but he had another scoring chance in the third period. I think there was 5 or 6 minutes left. So, I mean, this wasn't I don't think there's a big cause for concern here. Obviously, the turnovers are bad. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I know Logan Stanley's getting lit up here. You can't do that. I mean, you can't try to be Bobby Orr when you're down a goal, right? And yes, there was some line juggling, and Logan Stanley's maybe trying to do a little bit too much there, but you just have to know at that point in the game, and you have to know where you are on the ice, right? And it was just a horrible turnover that obviously led to a 2-on-1, right? So I think it's a bad loss, but the Jets have shown time and time again that they're able to bounce back. But I think that I'm not as upset. Maybe it's because it's late, Dave, but I'm not as upset with the way the Jets played tonight. I thought for the most part they played pretty well. They got their chances. Did they generate enough offense? No, I don't think they did. But the LA Kings, as we've talked about many times this year, are one of the stingier playoff teams in the NHL. Well, they haven't made the playoffs yet, but they're going to make the playoffs. So
I think they might have actually. Did
they clinch?
I don't think they clinched, but they might be very close.
Yeah, well, they're going to the playoffs. It's in that division. There's going to be 5 teams from the Central that make it, and it's going to be 3 from the Pacific. So and look, Dave, I realize that a lot of the narrative going into the playoffs is going to be the Kings have lost 3 years in a row to the Oilers. I still wouldn't want to play the Kings in the first round. And this year, I think, to me, what's a little bit different than previous years is Kemper. Darcy Kemper's a guy that he's not talked about in the same vein as Connor Hellebuck or Andrei Vasilevsky or some of the more elite goalies in the NHL. But he's got a Stanley Cup, and he's having a terrific year that I don't think's been talked about enough. So I think that that's a big difference for me, that you now have a top 10 goalie between the pipes, where in the past you were depending on Big Save Dave or yeah, exactly. So we'll see, but I mean it's early, but I think that the Kings are going to be formidable for the Oilers in the first round.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I know folks are upset about the loss, but I mean, it is still remarkable when you look at the trade for all 3 of those teams and how each one of those teams, the Jets, the Kings, and the Capitals, are all having success, despite the fact that we're always looking. Well, I wouldn't say we, but folks are always looking for winners and losers, Ezzy, and yet the Dubois Jets trade obviously worked out good for the Jets, and then the Kings not so much, but then they flipped them, and now it's working out for both the Kings and the Capitals.
Yeah, but can we talk about the Laine Dubois trade tree for like 30 seconds here, Dave? Because
it's your show. Go ahead.
It's our show. It's worked out. I'm not Drew. I don't speak in the first person like Drew does. Sure. And he says when he goes on, Edmonton Sports Talk or CJOB, and he talks about his show. It's our show.
Yes.
But regardless, I digress. But I really do think now I lost my train of thought.
You were about the Laine trade tree.
Oh yeah, the Laine Dubois trade tree. Sorry, Dave. It is 12:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So forgive me for losing my train of thought. But you look at Laine, he's tearing it up. What does he have? 17, 18 goals for the Montreal Canadiens after he missed 20 or 30 games. And then you look at Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's on the second place team in the league, first place team in the East, Washington Capitals. He's having a pretty good year.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Jets with Velarde, Iafallo, and Kupari, the big winners of the Dubois to LA trade. So it's just funny how it's kind of worked out well for everybody. Montreal currently in a playoff spot, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point by you. We done? You want to keep going, or you want to keep rolling on that one, or?
No, I mean we can get into the play now game recap, but I mean it's always fun to talk about the Dubois Laine trade tree, in my opinion.
For sure. I mean, like I said, to me, it's always like I always love the draft picks and where they end up going. You're like, oh well, hey, there's Elias Salamonson ends up being a second rounder that the Jets got because they ended up picking up that pick. Anyways, we'll get into that. We'll have lots of time to talk about that. But right now, Ezzy, Schenn would have had a hat trick tonight. True North Ducky, that's some faith that Luke Schenn, although it was Scott O'Neill did have a funny line when he said, oh, his back just stiffened up. It's kind of like me in the morning. So I'm like, okay, well,
me and you both, Dave.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was Scott O'Neill's comment, Ezzy, but yes, you and I as well. Let's get into it. Let's talk about a little thing called the Play Now game recap.
The Play Now game recap.
As you always got to make sure you're playing responsibly, and that's what our friends at Play Now do each and every time we go live on this show. Well, things started off. It was an interesting start to the game, I thought. I mean, as you kind of texted me, it was a little bit. They were honoring someone in LA. His name's eluding me now. What was his name? Nick something.
Oh, Nick Nixon.
Nick Nixon, right?
Yeah.
And so they were honoring him, and it was. I thought, well, that's really what folks in Winnipeg who are starting with a 9:30 start want to deal with is a delay to the start of the game with a ceremony. But sure enough, it got. I think the game didn't start till about 9:45 or something like that. So I thought, oh boy, this.
Well, Dave, after the second period ended, I looked at my phone, and it was 20 after 11.
Yeah,
like
no, I know
this is going to be a long night.
It is, and it was funny because I was like, "Oh man!" And it was funny because the game recap was scheduled for 12:10, and we didn't actually. The game ended around 12:14, so it wasn't too bad, even though we've been yammering. Of course, this is the Illegal Curve post game show. I should mention that. This is Ezzy Ginsburg. I'm Dave Minuk, and make sure you smash that like button. We appreciate you joining us each and every time we go live here on the show. And by the way, we've got lots of good stories to tell on tonight's show, so you're not going to want to miss any of it. That's a little hint for those of you listening. I'm not going to reveal why, but just make sure you listen to the entire show. We got some good stories coming your way.
Do we?
Oh, well, even for you. But anyways,
before we get into the Trevor Moore goal, or before we just start off the game recap, I want to give a big shout out to our boy Dave Shore from Winnipeg, living down in Southern California. He was at the Kings Jets game tonight. Just want to give Dave a big shout out. He was just texting me that he's listening to the show in his car. So Dave Shore representing Winnipeg down in California. You got to love it.
All righty. Well, I mean, and lots of people are listening to the show. I met some folks tonight as I was taking in the appetizer, tonight's main course, both meals I want to return. The Moose came. The Moose were playing in Winnipeg, kicking off 6 at home, and the Jets, of course, were the later one. But I met someone in the press box who listens. They saw the Illegal Curve name bar in the press box, and the lady said she was getting a tour of the press box. She said, "Oh, I recognize you," and she goes, "I listened to the show." So shout out. I didn't get their names. They're Dave Turnbull's aunt and uncle, I believe. So
nice.
shout out to them. And we'll hopefully they're listening to the podcast. Maybe, well, probably not live, but they'll probably listen tomorrow. So
Dave Turnbull is an absolute beauty. I went to Red River with him, and then I when I worked part-time for the Bombers, that was a long time ago, Dave. I don't even know if you remember that, when I had a part-time job with the Bombers, but
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, worked with Dave Turnbull and Darren Cameron. So shout out to those boys. And obviously Dave does a great job on the radio and as the Moose PA announcer. There you go.
Okay, well, let's get into that first goal. Trevor Moore opens the scoring at the 8:28 mark. As I mentioned, kind of off the top of the show, this game was characterized by miscues and mistakes, plays where the Jets had control and they turned it over and the Kings made them pay. I'd say the Kings were opportunistic when they needed to be. And again, the Jets were careless, and that's not something we've seen from the Jets too much this season, but mistakes when they have the puck and them burning them. And here Colin Miller tries to get kind of handcuffs Mark Scheifele with the pass, and Scheifele kind of whiffs at it. And next thing you know, it's interesting because to me, it's not a play where it's a rush play. I thought Colin Miller had time. And similar, and I've mentioned this play a few times already, when Luke Shen handcuffed Dylan Sandberg with that pass.
Yeah.
And it's reminiscent of what we see in the AHL when pass are behind guys and just not crisp. And that to me was an unfortunate start because it set Scheifele couldn't really get it. And next thing you know, the Kings turn over and it ends up in the back of the net.
Right. And we talked about it. I mean, there were 3 goals for the Kings tonight that were directly the result of turnovers by the Jets, right? So, I mean, you mentioned it, Colin Miller. It was like you kind of said. I mean, it was just awkward the way Colin Miller passed it to Scheifele, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was just like it was a bank pass that had a little bit too much pace on it, and Scheifele just couldn't handle it. And then it's just a point shot by Joel Edmondson tip by Trevor Moore, who's having a good year. He's up to 17 goals on the season. He's kind of, one of those unsung heroes on the Kings, because obviously you think of Adrian Kempe and Anze Kopitar and, Quinton Byfield, Kevin Fiala, the big dogs. But Trevor Moore is on pace for a 20-goal season at least. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, there's not much more that you can say to this, that it when you turn the puck over in these types of situations, and then you have when you have Joel Edmondson, who has lots of time to put it on net, and then you have multiple Kings players in front of the net, and then Colin Miller was a little bit late to get there. I mean, it's just, that's all it takes, right? Like mistakes can end up in your back of the net within a second or two, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the ones where, the Jets knew what they did wrong there. And they obviously know what they did wrong on the other two goals that we're going to get into by the Kings, but it's just unfortunate, and it's just not characteristic. And like I said earlier, Dave, it seems like, we've been doing a lot of these post-game shows. What is this, 75 now? I forget, 75 or 70, 74 or 73? 75. Whatever it is, 75. There you go. It's incredible. But we've seen this so many times when, in losing efforts, and it's not just for the Jets, it's other teams too. A lot of times when you give up 3 or 4 goals, you've turned the puck over, right? Mm-hmm. So just it's just little things like that easily could have been a Joel Edmondson point shot, Dave, that didn't even get through to Hellebuck.
Right.
Yeah. And it turns out that it's tipped by almost said Trevor Lewis. Trevor Moore. Trevor Moore in front of that. Yeah, Trevor Lewis was, but Trevor Moore, it's a tip. So I mean, it's just sometimes those mistakes don't come back to bite you. And in this particular case, it obviously did. Yeah, no, I mean, and the other thing also is the fact that, as you said, Colin Miller makes the bad pass to Shifley, but then he also doesn't get to the front of the net, because the Jets it was numbers, right? It was 2-all. I learned you don't try to beat a guy when your last man back was when I was 10. Oh, now I caught it. I wasn't sure. I thought I was saying something, but JB was just telling us what he learned many years ago. And that's a fair point by JB. But again, going to the idea of Colin Miller, I mean, he makes the bad pass, but then he and Sandberg are both should be both there. As it's really it's man on man there. And he just doesn't, he does, like you said, he's too late to get there. And I will say the one thing about the Kings, I thought they were relentless in their skating. I thought they were real. They had a bit of an attack mentality, I thought, throughout the course of this game. And again, when I say that, they picked their spots, I would say. And again, going to that idea of opportunistic, and sure enough. Oh, do you want to jump in here? Well, no, I was just going to say, I guess you could see me inhale there, eh, Dave? Yeah, you could hear my my lungs. We've been doing the show long enough for me to know when you got something. No, I was going to say, I mean, the Jets and Kings, I think to in many respects play a very similar type of game. Yeah. To be honest with you, I think the Jets are more dynamic, and I think the Jets are a deeper team, and obviously, they have the edge in goal. But we talked about Darcy Kemper has been excellent. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because he's from Saskatchewan or what, but I just think Darcy Kemper is very underrated. But I think that you look at the Jets and the Kings and the way they play, they're both very, very structured defensively. Mm-hmm. And they both have the ability to burn you if you turn the puck over, and especially in transition, right? Right. And so I just, that's all I wanted to say. That, I mean, you got to remember, like we said, the Kings have won 11 of their last 14 games. They're trying to lock up second in the Pacific, maybe even finish first, but they're going to have to catch Vegas, obviously, to do that. But right. I just think that this would not be a good matchup for the Jets in the playoffs. Put it that way. These are the types of teams that, and that's why, I don't think particularly that the Jets match up well against the St. Louis Blues for a lot of similar reasons. Like, you look at the Blues, Dave, in this run, and they've locked it down defensively. That's been a big story, because you look at the Blues, they don't have a lot of superstars, right? Like, it's Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou leading the way. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that would be my main point about the Jets this season, is that they do struggle against teams that are able to really lock it down defensively. Yeah. And the Kings are one of the best teams in the league at doing that. I think that's a fair point. And sure enough, a minute 22 later, while the Jets
giving up a goal. And, I think Arneal had mentioned, you can't really afford to do that against the Kings because they will lock it down. And it looks like a nothing play. Josh Morrissey, has the puck to David Gustafson, but he doesn't. David Gustafson loses the puck. Josh Morrissey goes for the line change. Dylan DeMello is unable to get off. Colin Miller does get on. And as a result, you've got, Colin Miller almost tries to overcompensate for Dylan DeMello, who's on the right side. And it leaves a guy you probably should never leave wide open. And Anze Kopitar burns the Jets. And sure enough, it's a 2-0 game, just a minute 22 after the Jets had given up the first goal. So not a great, we love hearing Dennis Bayak say bang, bang, but the Kings go bang, bang on this play.
Yeah. And it's similar to the first goal in that it's an unforced error. And that should be a fairly easy, that's the first pass out of the zone from Morrissey to Gustafson. Like that should be, if it doesn't result in anything, fine, but at the very least you gain center, you get the puck deep, right? And so this just shouldn't happen, right? Like it's just a mistake that doesn't need to happen. And Kuzmenko makes a nice play, sure, getting it to Kempe. He kind of backhands it to Kempe, who gets it over to Kopitar, right? But it's just, that's how quickly teams can make you pay, right? You make a little mistake, whether it's in your own zone or whether it's in the neutral zone, which obviously it was in this case, and teams can turn it around. Like teams are way too fast and skilled that if you make that type of play, like they can burn you easily. Mm-hmm. And even like we said before, even though the Kings might not have as much top end talent as the Jets,
especially that first line.
Well, exactly. And I thought Kuzmenko was noticeable all night. And he's been a guy that's been on 3 or 4 teams now. And I kept thinking to myself, like, why were teams giving up on this guy? Like Kuzmenko, you watch him and you're like, this guy kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Max Afinogenov. Going a little bit back there.
Sabres action.
He's got a lot of skill.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, unfortunate for Gus Bus. We talked about, he's out 9 games in a row, right, Dave? It was healthy scratch.
Yeah.
And then he came back and then he scored. Was that against the Devils? It was either against the Devils or the Canucks. I forget.
It was the second goal of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was the Devils game, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the chat will help me out there. But Gustafson has been a nice story for a guy who's obviously been in and out of the lineup all year. So, it's unfortunate for a guy, especially a guy like a fourth line guy like that. I mean, we're not going to, make him feel bad about this one, Dave, because obviously, it was an egregious error. Everybody saw it. But that was just, again, the story of tonight's game was every time the Jets seemed to make a turnover, especially in the neutral zone, the Kings turned it up ice. And so it shows you they're a good transition offense team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's 2-0 for the Kings after 1 period of play. But to the point that you made, Ezzy, the Jets seem to make some proper adjustments in that second period, I should say in the first intermission, because they come out for the second period in a much different fashion. They came out more aggressive, creating opportunities. And again, it wasn't a back and forth high event game. I think high danger chances at 5-on-5 ended up 6-6 between the two teams. But the fact of the matter is that I just thought, like you said, the Jets had a good start, but they get the penalty. They get the first penalty of the game. It went to what was the penalty again? Oh, it's Connor Hellebuck, that goon, for tripping Kevin Fiala. So he is. They send the nicest guy on the team in Cole Perfetti. Although usually I feel like Nino Niederreiter or Vlad Domestikov also usually Nino Niederreiter, I think, is the guy who gets stuck with penalty duties if it's a delay game or something of this nature. But Cole Perfetti, he heads to the box and the Jets head to the PK. Anything again on the PK. Now we should acknowledge the Kings power play is not very good. I think they have the 28th overall ranked power play in the NHL. So they are not a very lethal power play. And I mean, to my mind, again, I thought the PK played it pretty well.
No, absolutely. And, you mentioned Cole Perfetti, they select him to go in the box. And obviously it turns out to be the right choice, but gotta focus on your man, Morgan Barron here, Dave, because obviously he blocks a shot late in the power play. And then Cole Perfetti happens to be coming out of the box on the right side. And Barron just acknowledges that. And obviously Perfetti goes to the right side and literally the right side. And so it's just a nice play by Barron to get the puck up to Perfetti. And then I love that Perfetti, I think, was thinking shot the entire time.
Yeah.
Even though I think he sold the pass. It was Kyle Connor who was up there. I got the
Kyle Connor.
Kyle Connor was up there with Perfetti, right? So, I mean, just great to see Perfetti continuing to put goals in the net, putting points on the board, but had to give Morgan Barron a big shout out there, Dave, because obviously he's been a guy that has been criticized, maybe for not producing enough on that fourth line. But I think now that he's moved over to center, I think he's playing the best hockey of the year. I think you'd probably agree with that, right, Dave? And obviously this is the time of year when you want to be playing your best hockey of the year. And, he's putting up points. He's blocking shots. I made the point, and he had the good scoring chance in the third period. So I thought that line was good. Brandon Tanev obviously was out there on the penalty kill as well, right? So I think Morgan Barron, in a game like this, we got to find, we got to point out the positives, right? We can't just focus on, the bad turnovers that lead to goals for the Kings, right? We got to focus on, some of the more unheralded heroes of this game. And I thought Morgan Barron was definitely one of the better Jets tonight.
Well, and again, I love that you just ran into it, but there's only one problem. Because you didn't let me do this.
The Seagram shot of the game.
We are definitely giving the Seagram shot of the game to Cole Perfetti for his 17th goal of the season. It was an absolute, it was a beautiful shot. And like you said, Ezzy, it's funny because the Moose do a thing where with kids, and they do it. Is it a sauce or toss? And in that, it's a pizza giveaway one. But I will say that this was
it's a sauce.
That was a toss. That was a toss, and he tossed it right into the back of the net.
Hold on, what's the reference
sauce,
though?
No, you sauce the pass over, or you toss the puck into the back of the net.
Yeah.
So in this instance, it was a toss by Cole Perfetti. I don't know if the Jets will ever do that promo, but it was a beautiful shot by Cole Perfetti. It is the Seagram shot of the game, and you thought to yourself, well, this is what I do sometimes when I'm talking to myself. Can the Jets cue a comeback? Because this is, again, if it's 3-0, and again, the Jets, usually we get a good sense. Everybody here has watched this team enough to know whether I do want pizza. Actually, I ate pizza for dinner tonight, so I had pizza. But maybe that's why pizza's on the brain. But the fact of the matter is that,
and also, Corey, I always want pizza. Like I can eat an entire pizza and then want pizza after.
That's fair. I've seen him do it, folks. In fact,
that's probably why I'm 255 pounds.
Anyways, point is, so the Jets, about to build some momentum. The Cole Perfetti goal, that is his 17th, as we just said, and now they are down 2-1 and pushing. And that's not a bad thing, but you don't need to score on every. It's like you can't score on every opportunity. And I understand that guys want to help and be part of the queuing the comeback, but Logan Stanley, who again is already going to be the guy everyone is hyper focused on in this market, he gives everybody who doesn't like him plenty to continue to complain about on this play. I mean, again, I jokingly said he tried to channel his inner Cale Makar and didn't quite get it right, but he loads up in the neutral zone, similar to what we saw with David Gustafson, gets his pocket picked. He goes tumbling into the boards, leaving it to be a Kings 2-on-1. And Andrei Kuzmenko makes no mistake. And look, I didn't think Connor Hellebuck had his strongest game. He didn't necessarily bail out his teammates when they made miscues like we've seen him do in the past. But the fact of the matter is that this is a pretty egregious mistake by Logan Stanley, simply because your team is building momentum. It's a 2-1 game. And for him to make that sort of mistake, again, you have to know what your ability is. And you're not a puck carrying, you're not Josh Morrissey. Like, I'm sorry, you just aren't. You shouldn't be doing that kind of play. It's high risk, low reward, because you're not going to go end to end.
Exactly.
And so to me, it's like you have to have something, my Bob would call it sechel. You have to have some brains there. And no, you're not going end to end. So what is the objective here? Dump that puck in. But to do what he did, to lose the puck, and your momentum is forward, and they're coming the other way, that's going to end up badly.
Absolutely. And, as I'm watching that, I was thinking like, oh, Stanley's moving well tonight, and I think it was Nick Ehlers who was because it was the Ehlers Perfetti Niederreiter line that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, like, and then you watch the replay and you're like, just either pass it to Ehlers will chip it in, or just dump the puck in. Like you said, it was very low reward, high risk, right? Because you're in a situation where you're like, the most that you're going to do there is possibly gain the blue line.
Yeah.
But you just weren't going to, like, and obviously he spills and then it leads to a 2-on-1, but and Kuzmenko just does the right thing and hangs onto it and gets it past Hellebuck. But it was one of those plays where, like, Stanley just has to know better, simply put, like you said. Yeah. And he's obviously been burned several times this year on turnovers. And look, Stanley, we talked to Kevin Sawyer about it on Saturday's show, right? Stanley's a guy who, going into the playoffs, his spot's not guaranteed, right? Like, you have a guy like Hayden Fleury who can also play third pair left side, right? So for a guy like Stanley, if he wants to stay in the lineup and, be in the Jets' top 6 heading into the playoffs, he can't make plays like that. That's for sure. And I actually thought against the Devils, Dave, and against the Canucks, those were maybe 2 of Stanley's better games, but because he was quiet and you didn't hear his name a lot, which just meant he was the right thing, right? Taking care of business in his own end, et cetera, right? So it's unfortunate. Like we said, that's the kind of story of tonight's game. It's just the Jets being loose with the puck, turning the puck over, and the Kings just seem to make them pay every single time.
Yeah, and again, like I said, this is not all on Logan Stanley. Other guys, David Gustafson, who generally doesn't make a lot of mistakes, he made a bad turnover, right? Colin Miller handcuffed Mark Scheifele on the first one and then didn't play it particularly strongly. So, I mean, guys, there were lots of guys who and again, I didn't like the way Colin Miller defended on the Gustafson goal again. So, I mean, there were lots of guys had bad games. I didn't think that, I shouldn't say that. There were a few guys who stuck out for the wrong reasons. I thought Mason Appleton actually had a good game, as he.
Yep.
Nikolai Ehlers had a good game, drew 2 penalties. But at the same time, there's just, these games are not going to be, especially a game like against the Kings. We knew it wasn't going to be high flying. It wasn't going to be a 7-6 hockey game. It was.
That's why I've compared the Kings to my Devils of the early 2000s.
Sure.
Or the late 90s or whatever. Like, they suffocate you. They basically play a trap. Like, they call it a 1-2-2, but it's essentially a trap. It's a variation of the trap. I think you'd agree with that, Dave. Yep. I realize that, hockey people don't want to call it the trap anymore because that kind of goes back to 20 years when hockey was kind of a little bit more boring with the clutching and grabbing and everything. But that's essentially what they do here. They will give you a little speed in the neutral zone, but what they'll do is they line it up at the blue line, and they take care of the middle of the ice. They don't let you, like, how many times did you see the Jets really get into the middle of the ice tonight? Like a handful of times, right? Because they've got big defensemen like Gavrikov and Drew Doughty,
Edmondson,
Joel Edmondson. Brant Clark is a really good young defenseman. Like, again,
by the way, there was a rumor that the Kings were looking to get rid of Brant Clark, which was kind of shocking.
Yeah, not sure why, because especially with Doughty out, he's a right shot. When he was out, I should say, he's a right shot, and Brant Clark's a right shot. So they definitely needed him earlier in the season, right? So I mean, it was just one of those games where the Jets weren't generating a crazy amount of offense. Like we said, like, Ehlers was obviously very noticeable tonight, like he usually is, drawing penalties. And I thought Scheifele was getting looks. The fourth line was getting looks. Obviously, Cole Perfetti scores a goal, but he had another chance late in the third period, right? So, I mean, look, you're not going to win every single hockey game. And this was a closer game than the score indicates, like we talked about earlier. And the Jets have to clean up those mistakes because, look, Dave, they've got a tough opponent coming up in the Vegas Golden Knights, and we talked about it. The Pacific Division is crowded, right? Like, Vegas is trying to hold off Edmonton, trying to hold off LA. So, I mean, that's going to have a playoff feel to it as well.
Yeah, and as you said, as a tough opponent in LA, in Vegas, because I believe they've lost 8 straight to Vegas. So they probably need to have some.
Weird. Isn't that weird? I find that weird. Like, Vegas is a good team, but Is that the stat? They've lost 8 straight. Wow.
I think I read that today. I haven't done my pregame stuff for, I'm like Scott O'Neill, I focus on the one game at a time. I don't look down the road. I'm not like Drew, who's thinking about, every single game on the schedule, but I'm just focused on the next game. So I've done my pregame report for this one. I didn't yet do one for Vegas. I will, of course, do that tomorrow. So it's ready for Thursday on a little site called legalcurve.com, updated with all the latest Jets, Moose, prospect news. And I got lots of prospect news. If you don't want to go anywhere, because I'm going to have lots of prospect news to share on the other side of the break. So the Jets, they lose tonight's game 4-1. We don't go over empty net goals. They fall to 51, 20, and 4 on the season. As I mentioned off the top, they are still the first place team, despite Washington winning today. They now only have they have a 4-point lead on Dallas, but the Stars have that one game in hand. So
that April 10th game that we're doing at Boston Pizza Taylor, I mean, it really could come down to that game. I mean, by that time, maybe the Jets will have the Central Division locked up.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's looking like, Dallas just keeps winning, right? We keep talking about this, but
well, the strength of schedule for Dallas is advantageous to them. But ultimately, the end of the day is, if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you just have to keep focused on what you have to control, which is who is your opponent, and and can you beat them? And that'll be the key for this team for the next few weeks, is just focusing on the next game in hand, trying to bank points, and not worrying about what Dallas is doing or what Washington is doing. We'll see if they're able to do that. For now, we'll head to break, but I'm going to give you a little teaser. T. Conapoli, you're not going to want to go anywhere. And the rest of you also aren't going to want to go anywhere when we come back on the other side of the break to discuss all the latest surrounding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and Jets prospects. This is the Illegal Curve Postgame Show. I'm Dave Manouk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. Smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribing to this channel, and we'll be back right after these words from our sponsors.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. This is post-game show number 75 on the season.
The same age as Drew.
Same age as Drew Mandel. And we appreciate all of you sticking with us. It's already after 1 o'clock in the morning. And yet all you good folks are still here on this show with me, Dave Minuk, and my main man, Ezzy Ginsburg. So be sure while you're here to smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. I would love to know what our percentage of subscription is right now. As I would imagine it's probably pretty high because these are our dedicated core. These are the folks these are our ride or dies. As these are the ones
absolutely
with us, win or lose. Again, there's lots. We'll take everybody, so we're not going to minimize, but we do appreciate the folks that stick with us regardless of outcome. And so, I understand that the folks when the Jets lose, they don't want to listen. They'll a lot of time people tell me after a game when the Jets lose, they can't hear or talk about it, but they'll download the podcast after the fact and listen to us the next day. So I appreciate them as well, but I appreciate all of you.
Well, we do sound good in the future too.
We do sound excellent in the future. Yeah. Now,
but I guess if you're listening to this on the podcast, it's not the future, it's just the present, and we're actually in the past. But we're talking to the people who are listening to the show on the podcast, so that's the future
for them. There you go. All right.
Let's go back to the future, Dave.
We're going to go back to the future from a few hours before because it wasn't just the Jets in action, as I mentioned. It was a double game day. So
put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Still makes me chuckle when I look at that promo thing. But anyways, I'm not going to go through the whole Moose game, although I will say that the Moose, they needed to come out to a good start facing former Moose head coach Pascal Vincent and his number one Laval Rocket. They're the best team in the entire AHL. So the Pascal Vincent led Laval Rocket were going to be a tall task. The Moose, so you're telling me there's a chance they could still make the playoffs, but of course they'd have to win basically all their games. They can't afford to lose more than one, basically. And of course, tonight's game was a loss, as I mentioned already. So the Moose down, I think their tragic number is down to one, either a loss tomorrow. Rockford doesn't play, I think, till Thursday. So if they don't win tomorrow, they're done. And if they do, even if they do, Rockford still, all they need is 1 point and they'll eliminate the Manitoba Moose. So things aren't looking great for the AHL club of Manitoba. And they were down in this hockey game 3-0. Quickly, I will say, though, that, and this is the story I want my boy T. Conapoli and all of you folks to enjoy. I think you'll enjoy it too, Ezzy. So I'm at morning skate today, taking in the Moose optional morning skate at Canada Life Center. And we were going to do interviews with the two former Seattle Thunderbirds, ECHL goalie of the month, Thomas Milic, who went 7-2-2, had a .937 save percentage and a 1.70 goals against average, including
crazy numbers. Yeah,
crazy numbers with Norfolk. So we were going to talk to Thomas, and we were also going to talk to his former D-man, Tyrell Bauer. And so we were waiting for them, and I'm standing around with Daniel Fink and Austin Saragusa, and we're waiting for the guys to come off the ice, and we're standing right by the doors where they come out. And so the door, Ticone is all ears. I just saw that. So the door opens, and Tyrell's skating off the ice, and I'm standing right there. He sees me, says, "Hi, Dave." I said, "Hi, Ty." And he goes, "Oh, wait, I got to talk to you." So everybody's like, "Ooh, what's going on?" And so he goes to me, he's like, "Yeah, so I was with Parker Ford, and we were looking for a place to eat, and we sat down at this restaurant, and hey, we're looking through the menu. There's an illegal curve sandwich on this menu."
No way.
And so he goes, I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "So we decided to have," he asked the lady, the waitress, he goes, what's the story with this?" She goes, "Oh, it's from a hockey podcast." And Tyrell's like, "I know the guy who does that podcast. I'm going to talk to him about it." And so he and Parker Ford both tried the illegal curve sandwich and rave reviews. They both loved the illegal curve sandwich. So
what? This is the best story ever.
I knew you.
Well, you know how much I'm very proud of the illegal curve sandwich at Bernstein's Deli. But the fact that that Ty and Parker Ford ate the sandwich, I mean, that's obviously the biggest honor, right? So, I mean, that's just super cool. So thanks to those guys for trying out the sandwich. I mean, it is an amazing sandwich. For those who haven't tried it out, we don't have to. Well, I mean, maybe I will mention it's chicken schnitzel. It's obviously there's a little cheese on there. There's salami, fried onions on thick cut city rye bread. So if you haven't tried it out, go to Bernstein's and tell the owner Aaron that we sent you and try out the Illegal Curve sandwich. But that's an awesome story, Dave.
Well, that was a story. It was funny because Ty was excited for me, and I said, "Well, really, that's my boy Ezzy's going to love that story, and T. Kona Pauly's going to love that you're telling us that story." But that's really an Ezzy. Ezzy's going to be very pumped, and I wanted, it was funny. It's one of those things I heard about, and I was like, immediately, I was like, I got to text Az and tell him. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna. And then Daniel Fink, of course, Moose play-by-play broadcaster, is like, no, don't tell him. You got to just share it on the show live and get that reaction. So there you go. I knew you would appreciate that.
Ty's an absolute beauty. He's one of our favorites. Obviously, we've had him on the show before. Dave, you've obviously developed a close relationship with him. He's an absolute beauty, tough as nails, but overall just a good Alberta boy.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And so he and the Moose, unfortunately for them, fall in. They gave it a fighting shot. Dominic Toninato, the captain, he scored his 17th and 18th goal of the season. So they fell just short. 3-2 was the final. And I think I've actually got tickets if anybody wants to go. There's not many of you left in the chat, but if you are going to be if you are interested in seeing, the Moose and the Laval Rocket play tomorrow night. And I should mention, I was so excited to tell Izzy that story and all of you that I forgot some of the other things I was going to say. Nice moment in the game. The team honored Pascal Vincent. Of course, he was a head coach of the Manitoba Moose for 5 years, an assistant coach with the Jets. And I know that the Jets had honored him when he came back with Columbus, but this was his first time coming back in to Winnipeg. And it's funny because I saw Pascal yesterday at Hockey for All Center, and I was having a good conversation with him. And I asked him what it was like to be back home. And by that, I meant Laval because that's where he's from and that's where he's coaching. And he thought I meant Winnipeg because he thinks of Winnipeg as home.
That's awesome.
This is where his daughter was born. So he's just a great guy. Had a great time.
I miss seeing Pascal around Canada Life Center. But obviously he's having a great year with Laval, and you got to catch up with him. So great to see that he's doing well.
Yeah. No, so that was nice to catch up with him yesterday at the Hockey for All Center. And unfortunately, that's kind of leads me into my next segment because, of course, we did have some breaking news, or it was a little bit of breaking news with respect to what was going on with some of or I should say not breaking news, but health updates, Ezzy, because speaking of Parker Ford, he, of course, had surgery. And so the update with him is he had surgery, just for folks who are curious, he had surgery and he's 4 weeks into it. This is from Mark Morrison, head coach of the Manitoba Moose. I think the cast comes off soon. I saw Parker Ford today. He still was wearing the cast. And he'll start working. He's been on the ice skating and working as hard as he can. He's just starting to hold the stick. So, a couple more weeks and Parker will be good. He puts the work in, put it that way. And I asked if there's a possibility he'll still get in some games. He said, I certainly hope so. It'd be great if he could, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's going to be right on the edge there. I also asked about Nikita Chibrikov because you'll remember I broke the news that he had a season-ending injury. And Mark Morrison's comment to me yesterday was his rehab is going great. Trainers tell us that he's ahead of the process, working really hard. He's here sometimes 5 to 7 hours a day, putting the time in, putting the effort in. He looks good. I heard today that maybe by the end of April, he'll be moving around on the ice a little bit. Everything looks good. The bad news was that Chaz Lucius, he's still looking to get a prognosis on his ailment. I don't expect him back for the season. And I said, well, that's got to be pretty tough given all the hurdles this young man has had to overcome in his young career. At just 22 years of age. And Mark's comment was he's fought through some surgeries and injuries. He worked really hard to get back to where he was. And like you said, he played 20 some odd games in a row and was making strides. And then this hits. It's unfortunate. Feel bad for him, but hopefully he can get over this one as well. So there is your trio of updates with respect to a couple of prospects. And of course, Parker Ford, who is having an impact. So Parker Ford could potentially be a black ace, probably will be, I would suspect, with the Jets when the time comes, when the Moose season ends in mid-April. And of course, the Jets turn their attention to the playoffs. Okay, and there's lots going on with the prospects, but I'm not going to get into that because it's already 1:15, and I've still got to post this podcast. As
people can read about that on illegalcurve.com, though.
That was going to be my next comment. If you want to read about it, go to the morning papers, which will be up in about 5 hours, and you can read all about.
Oh yeah, it's currently 1:15 in the morning.
Exactly. So that
I'm with you, Dave. Thank you to we got 90 or so with us live here on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
The ride or dies. We love it. Thanks for joining us, even though it's so late. Yeah, and the Jets lost, but who cares? You still got to come through and watch the IC post game show, right?
Well, exactly. And we appreciate you doing that. Appreciate you joining us. And hey, if you want to get to bed right now, we understand because you spent the night with us. So we're okay with that. So we thank you for joining us. And we thank all of the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, and that website, illegalcurve.com possibility. They are in no particular order: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Play Now, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and Seagram's. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. I like that comment from Corey. Bernstein's is almost open. At this point, it's true, but we are going to head to bed. This is the end of the night, but we'll be back with the 76th Illegal Curve post-game show Thursday night, a little more a reasonable hour. I think probably around 11:30, Ezzy, maybe 11:40. So that one will actually start before the day ends. But until then, illegalcurve.com is your resource for all the latest Jets and Moose news. It's as up to date as anything you're going to find. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We will see you on Thursday. Have a good night. For Dave Minuk, for Ezzy Ginsburg, this has been the Illegal Curve postgame show.